Hey all, welcome into Clips and Dip. As you'll probably notice, no Charles Mockler today, just me and Adam bringing you the good Clippers news. And we got some good news today. Clippers off their best win of the season over the Cavs, 132 to 119. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Clippers taking on the Grizzlies as they have a slate of difficult games coming up. And whatever else we get into. So kicking things off. Adam, how you doing today, my man? How's it going? How are you feeling basking in this victory?
Yeah, the afterglow is nice right now. It's feeling pretty good. It feels like the type of victory we were looking for a while. Now it's not every game you play the Cleveland Cavaliers,
Was
and you can say it's the best victory so far this season. It's the best game played at Intuit Dome. It felt like there were some high stakes going on, like the way the teams were matching up and the mismatch hunting that was going on. It seemed like everything was a little bit elevated in that ball game for the Clippers to come out on top and prove that, okay, they do have some potential to play with the big boys when they're fully healthy. That was big.
well, you talked about the Clippers on top. You talked about some possible future implications. Was something perhaps conceived out of this game?
Well, it was Ivica Zubac's birthday, so I would say so. You could say Chris Dunn's as well. Uh, I would not be shocked. I hope something happened a few weeks ago because they've won 7 of 8 now,
That's true.
They've been turning a corner, but that was the best Kawhi Leonard has looked all season long. And I don't think it's some coincidence that he played that well and had that much pop and burst out there. I
It
think
was
it was
also a
because,
lot of guys at once. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we've gotten a few isolated, really good Kawhi games. One thing that this team has struggled with all year is like everybody kind of hitting on all cylinders. We've had the same things where we've had some like exceptional individual James Harden games. We've certainly dropped some individually exceptional Ivica Zubac games, but this one just kind of really felt like it fully coalesced and came and sort of all came together.
yeah, I mean, for them to put up 130 on a pretty good defense, they had to be connected. And I really felt like they met the challenge in the first half because we were just mentioning it off air, but it felt like at one point in the first quarter, they could lose this game and the Cavs could be running away with this thing. They were up by double digits in the first quarter and they weren't missing. So the Clippers couldn't get stops. And it looked like they said, well, the pressure is on for us to have to knock down shots because our defense isn't good enough right now. And they hit 12 threes in the first half. And the Cavs
They
had
were
11.
shooting what better than 50% from three at one point.
Oh, yeah. They hit 5 straight to start the second quarter, I believe. Kawhi hit 2 of them. He had a step back 3 going. Like, I just think that was a really big moment for them offensively to know that we can't just hang our hat on our defense actually right now. We're not getting stops. The only way we're hanging in this ball game is if we actually execute very well on the offensive end, and they did.
Yeah, it was great to see them win. I'm glad that you bring up the 132 because I feel like they won in an unexpected way too. Like having to execute at a higher level offensively, and even in a game where Norm Powell looked certainly pretty mortal in this one, which was definitely combated by Bogey, who's on such a hot streak right now. What do you think he brings to this team? I mean, it certainly started a little up and down. It's now very much in the up. I mean, this has been a continued thing. He's upped his overall season percentage in his time with the Clippers. But what do you think having like another ball handler, a guy who can take some pressure off? Because in the stretch, like down the stretch of this game, he was kind of handling a lot of the ball handling duties with Kawhi Leonard and James Harden even being off ball to Bogey.
Yeah, that was a really special performance from him, and credit B. Shaw for having that conversation with Norman Powell and letting him know that, next time it'll be your night. But right now, it's bogey ball time. He's too hot. He goes 8 of 8 in the ball game. And the way he distributed in that fourth quarter, he had a great play where he entered the teeth of the defense and was waiting for Ivica Zubac to flash to the basket and then found him on a little pick and roll to get him going, as Zoo had 6 of his 28 in the fourth, and they were all big shots. But Bogey, he was hitting really tough shots. It wasn't like he was getting a bunch of layups or anything like that. And I'm not surprised. I've been high on him, and I think he's a big game player. I think this is what he can do for you. I think he can swing a playoff series. I think he's that good, especially because you see what he can do with the basketball in his hands too. He's not just some spot up shooter out there or a sniper that, if he's hot, great. But if he's not, what else does he offer? He's not Luke Kennard. That's not who he is as a
Totally.
player. So, and that's no disrespect to Luke. I mean, he was a 3-point percentage champion one season. I think he shot 46%. But Bogey just has a more well-rounded game than I think people realize. And that's a lot of people are starting to call him the X factor when he plays well. How do you beat this team? I don't know if he's going to play that well that often, but I was encouraged that it happened last night against Cleveland. It seemed like, I don't know, he just raised his level of play like everybody else.
Absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned the shot making. It was difficult. In particular, I'm thinking of the step back fadeaway three that he hit in front of the Clippers bench when everybody went sort of insane. But I think that I had been, I knew him coming to this team. He was going to offer another ball handler, something that we have kind of been lacking. I think I undervalued just how good he can be in that role. And certainly, like you said, it's not going to be like this every night. This was a perfect Bogey game. But him being able to bring that sort of versatility to the lineup is an interesting look that I hadn't thought about. And it certainly starts to make things more interesting. And I'm not saying that he'll be in the starting lineup barring any injuries, but like it certainly makes things more like interesting when you consider like the Chris Dunn and DJJ of it all. And like how we're still kind of figuring out where and what they fit into this starting lineup. And then you have this extra wrinkle, which, again, I'm not advocating for him being in the starting lineup, but it certainly makes more machinations around him, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Ivica Zubac, an even more interesting sort of discussion, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Their depth, well, it is a good thing. It can present some interesting discussions. I think, it just could be, what do they need? Do you need offense or do you need defense? Last night they needed offense because their defense wasn't stopping them anyways. And so they leaned on Bogey and he was hot. But yeah, I don't know how they're going to, there's so many mouths to feed on this team, how to keep everybody in rhythm, how to keep everybody involved. But you did get sacrifice from Norman Powell, as I mentioned last night. And if guys are willing to do that, we know DJ and Derrick Jones Jr. are.
I mean, you got sacrificed from Chris Dunn in that one too. He played just 17 minutes in that win.
Yeah, he got into foul trouble. He had some tough calls go against him. But the optionality of this team went up by quite a lot, I think, post-trade deadline with Bogey and Ben Simmons. They both give you something completely different dimension the Clippers did not have before. So it's just figuring out when to push that button or when to pull that lever to bring in that guy at the right time. But last night, B. Shaw has been doing a really good job with it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you bring up Shaw as well, because yet another game missing Ty Lue, lower back thing still, but no Van Gundy in this one either. Do you think that contributed at all to the Clippers sort of a little bit of I don't know if you can call it just like a lack of cohesion on the defensive end, or, I mean, the Cavs were just knocking down shots. They were also shooting above 50% from three at one point. I think they ended the night around 30, 35, 34%. But they were also having some insane shot making go in this one.
I thought they were so polished and a well-oiled machine, their offense in the first half, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I thought it was really impressive watching them work, because you talk about weaknesses and matchups and what you should pick at, and teams don't stick to that often enough. There isn't that game plan discipline. Whereas the Cavs last night said, we're going at James Harden like every time down. We're putting him in the action every damn time. And so the defense kind of broke down from there. They get past James, then Ivica Zubac has to step up and help, and now they're in rotation. And they kept making the right pass and finding the right guy. And Max Strus, I think, had a season high with those 24 points. And it was a DeAndre Hunter. He started like 6 of 6. And even though they're big four, they had off nights overall. And I think the Clippers defense does deserve a lot of credit there. especially late. They were really good, holding them to 17 points in the fourth quarter when they were trying to turn it on and Donovan Mitchell, was going downhill. They got some luck too with some shooting variance and some shots that were missed. But that first half, man, the Cavaliers, I couldn't say enough about just the way they were attacking. But then by the end of the first half, the Clippers started doing it to them, and they started going after Garland a ton.
Do you think that this was like, do you think, because watching this game, I thought that this might have been the most effectively this team has hunted sort of the matchups that they wanted offensively? Because I know that's been a big issue for the team all year long, especially a criticism from the fans. There's too much ISO ball. There's not enough ball movement. But I thought in this game that even when it was an isolation possession, they did a really good job of getting the matchup that they wanted first. And I thought that they were hunting in this one against, like you said, not a terrible defense. I mean, a good defense in the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I think they were like 7th in defensive rating coming into that game yesterday and had been trending in the right direction there. So, no, I think the Clippers did a very good job. Like, they took that initial punch and then countered. It seemed like they were dealing with some culture shock right away. Oh, this is what a great elite team looks like. But I'm happy about that because, honestly, the Cavs didn't come in and play their D- game or something like that, and the Clippers were just hot, and they weren't. They played a team. They got their best shot against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they met them and then exceeded them with the way they played down the stretch. But only being down by 5 at the half with how well the Cavs had started, I thought the Clippers really stepped up to meet the challenge and just when the pressure was on for them to make shots, because otherwise you're going to be down 15 in a hurry. They did. I think that was telling. I thought it showed something last night from this team. And yeah, they definitely did some matchup hunting themselves, and they looked pretty well organized out there. You put up 130 plus points. It's not easy to do. So I'm with you on that.
So we gave Bogdan his flowers. We haven't yet talked about the birthday boy enough. Ivica Zubac in this one. 18 field goal attempts. Adam, what's the line for field goal attempts when you can about pencil in a Clippers victory, do you think, at this point with Ivica Zubac? Is it 12? 15?
Like the floor of what he needs to be at?
Yeah.
So somebody asked me this recently, and they said, when healthy, when fully healthy, how many shot attempts is he going to get? And I felt like he should average at least 14 a night. Now, fully healthy, that's not easy, as we mentioned, especially with Bogey ascending the way he is. But there's just a level of physicality that Ivica Zubac brings that I think has a real cumulative effect out there with the way he showed himself last night, being able to take down the best front line in the NBA. His 28-20 was better than the combined stats from Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. That was just exceptional. And he made them look small at times. And I didn't expect that. Like, they looked downright small, and he looked like Shaq Zoo or Zoo Shaq or whatever people want to call him at times. He looked that dominant out there. So I think he does need to be a staple of the offense always, and that means quarter to quarter, not forgetting about him. I don't care if he's not playing well early. I don't care if it looks like he's moping out there, upset about a call at times. You have to continue to feature him throughout the ball game because it's like a running back that's only getting 2 yards per carry in the first half or 3 yards, but it wears down the defense. And then by the fourth quarter, he's ripping off some long runs. It just seems like Ivica Zubac can lean on a defense a little bit and then punish them late. And the floodgates kind of opened where he had those 6 points that were really crucial in the fourth quarter. Like, they haven't had, I mentioned this last night, but how many times will we talked about they do it the hard way? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the flip side, right? Of hunting matchups. Some of the ISO ball is like you're putting up the hardest shot on the floor pretty consistently, and especially sometimes when it's not even a three, it is really difficult. So I do see, and I think that his teammates are starting to see him as like this release valve as well. In that obviously they can plug the ball to him down low, but if the matchup that he wants isn't there or he can't get the shot, he's evolved enough in his game now to where he can be a little bit more patient. He can look for another teammate to pass to. He can use a little bit of his footwork to try to make a little bit of space. I just feel like there's a lot more tools in his arsenal, and we kind of saw that more on full display. But we got to talk about the other end of the floor, too, because 20 rebounds is insane. The entire Cleveland Cavaliers team only had 29 rebounds as a team, and that's been an issue for them all year long, which I don't fully understand, given sort of the front court rotation and some of the size that they have. What were you seeing out there? How was Zoo able to pull down these monster boards?
I think at times, I heard this from – I think of Cleveland. I think I was listening to Locked On Cavs or something earlier. Somebody was talking about the Cavaliers not having their smalls rebound well enough because the big guys are having to account for the other big guys, in this case, Ivica Zubac. And, if he's not getting them, he's at least taking those guys away from getting those boards at times. And then it comes down to the smalls getting rebounds out there. But I don't know. He was so aggressive out there. Some of it's because there were so many made shots in the game. There's less rebounds to be had, I guess. But, yeah, I didn't realize that they had an issue in the rebounding department, even with those two guys. That's kind of strange. But Zubac was just the biggest player on the floor in many ways. Like, he played up to his size. It wasn't just that technically, specs-wise, he's the biggest guy out there. But he played huge. And I thought that and one he had where he flexed late in the ball game, that might have been off of a Kawhi Leonard miss. I know he missed a jumper late and Zubac put it back in, but it was good to see him, play with that level of passion. I never really worry about Zubac getting up for big games too. Like, this is another 2020 game against a premier front court. He's done it against AD. He's done it against Triple J. He's done it against Wemby. That's not nothing.
He's circling these matchups. Like, I firmly believe that Zoo is, I think really, like, since that the disrespectful trade from the Lakers, he is a guy who takes these sort of matchups against other, elite centers very seriously.
Yeah,
on a personal level, and he took that personally.
I can't say enough. Like, he is one of the easiest guys to root for as a Clipper ever. I just love Ivica Zubac and his work ethic and everything. Post game, he was asked about. Someone said something to the effect of like, "How do you feel about scoring so much now?" And he's like, "It's great. Like,
a lot more fun."
Yeah, coming into the league, this is kind of what everybody wants to do. You end up having to do other things because you're not in the pecking order high enough up in it. But now that's completely changed for the better for the Clippers.
And he was getting a lot of love on the internet last night, notably from Terrence Mann, who sung his praises. Patrick Beverley as well, who has long been a champion of Ivica Zubac, by the way. And I really liked Kawhi was kind of asked about it post-game, and he talked about Zoo's growth. And namely, he said, how much more efficient he's gotten in mismatches against smaller guys and how much better the hook has gotten and just how much more patient he is with the ball in his hands. He said, like, the way Kawhi talked about it is that it's kind of like it's not a selfish mentality necessarily, but like when you don't get a lot of touches, you get the ball in your hands and you feel this immense sort of pressure to score. And I think Zoo, like, while he is capable of doing that, understands the game now at a different level or sees things a little bit slowly where, like, if the immediate opportunity to score isn't there, he can do all of these other things on the floor.
No, yeah. I thought that was a really cool comment too, and kind of spoke to, this is why young guys tend to be good individual players sometimes and put up stats, but maybe it doesn't translate to their team winning because they're reading the game through a very small lens instead of being able to see everything out there. Like, just because you have the ball in your hands doesn't mean the best play for your team is to score right now. But because if you're getting the ball less, you may feel like I need to get my numbers. I need to get my shots up. Now's my time. So, yeah, that patience from Ivica Zubac, pretty cool. I still feel like he could have been doing this last year. He could have been doing this year before. He just needed to get the actual reps.
Yeah, for sure.
More.
And
But
I want to say too, like I don't think that I'm not saying that I think Ivica Zubac was like selfish. I just think it's a thing of like you feel the pressure of like when you get the ball offensively, like in your head, like that's what you're expected to do. Like
yeah.
when really there's so many more aspects to your game and helping your team, which I think he's hit a great stride in. But let's get back to the defensive end on the floor. What were you seeing from Kawhi Leonard? Arguably his best game of the season. What did you think about him on the defensive side of the floor? Because we've talked about how that's that's one of the meter sticks to gauge where Kawhi Leonard is at from a health and confidence in his body perspective is on that end of the floor.
No, yeah, he's looked good to me since the Atlanta game. So really the last 3 games, it seems like he's finding his footing defensively. The Atlanta game stood out to me, and then yesterday he was on Donovan Mitchell, I think, to start, and he got plenty of time on him. He had a bad game. He's getting more steals, and he's getting more of those crafty basketball plays where he ends up in the right place at the right time, even though he could have easily been out of position, but he knows where the flow of the ball is heading to, and he ends up taking away a pass that way. It seems like those natural instincts are really kicking in for Kawhi right now. I thought he looked good on that end for the 3rd straight game, and the bounce, the pop overall, that's even though he didn't have a dunk, even though he didn't really get to the rim much, he had like a spinning floater and like a push shot early in the game. But to me, that's probably why it was his best game to me, because he got back to his bread and butter in the mid range, and he's hitting shots that are just unguardable. There's nothing you can do about it. The spin move to the fall away on Evan Mobley at the end of the game on the far side baseline is just, what are you gonna do?
Mobley was he was the unfortunate receiver of a couple of highlight plays over him, and I say unfortunate because it's only notable because he is a good defender. Is like why these are so notable. Him and James Harden had one as well. 5 of 6 from 3 for Kawhi. Where do you see the dispersal of his shots? I mean, we've talked about this a little bit, but his mid range was weirdly the thing that wasn't working there for kind of a while. Do you think that he's at a stage of his game where he should be maybe considering like a different sort of dispersion of his shot profile, or just continue to, or this was just the way the game came to him in this one?
So in listen to what he said Sunday night after the Hornets game, he kind of confirmed something I was thinking, that the reason he hasn't looked as sharp as he typically does around this time during the ramp up process when he comes back from an injury is because he can't train the same way. He can't do that hard work that he used to, that he is known for being one of the hardest workers. So he just has to get the in-game reps, which is totally different, obviously. To get his timing, he's figuring it out on the fly in games instead of getting some of that timing just by doing really hard training sessions. But because of the right knee and the mercurial nature of the swelling, you can't push things too far, I think. And he said something to the degree of, I'd rather be available more than be more efficient or whatever, like just being out there. So I kind of rationalize it as, okay, maybe he's not at a 9 or a 10, but he's available more and he's still at a 7 or an 8, and he looks really good. Now, last night I'd say he was at a 10. So I do think at some point he'll get enough of the in-game reps to make up for the lack of training. And maybe we're starting to get there now, because last night I think it was game 26 for him, and he just looked spectacular. But also it was a big game, and you could tell there was a different level of focus. And Kawhi always downplays the fact that when people have asked him, about getting up or raising your game in the playoffs, and he always like, I'd play the same way all the time. It's like, no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
Yeah. No, that's fair. This, this big win got the Clippers, I feel like, some more media attention than they've had, certainly like in a few weeks. I don't know if you caught Stephen A. Smith's comments about Kawhi, but he basically said that he's checking his watch and waiting for another injury and isn't really willing to read too much into this one.
That part, I understand the cynicism, that part of it, but he also went into like, I didn't see him get injured in the playoff series against the Phoenix Suns. he walks off the floor after game 2 and just doesn't come back. He was insinuating that he seemed to be, with his language at least, maybe he didn't mean it like this, but he kind of doubled down on it multiple times. What offended me was it seemed like he was insinuating that like Kawhi just didn't want to play sometimes. Like
Yeah.
he would just leave a playoff series. It's like, dude, what do you think he had surgery on if he didn't get hurt that summer? Like, what are you talking about? It seemed really lazy and I don't know, par for the course of Stephen A. Smith analysis.
They've had issues though since Kawhi was in San Antonio. Like he hasn't exactly been a glowing reviewer of him. But if you've ever watched Kawhi Leonard play basketball, I feel like the notion that he would willingly quit or walk off just because of how he felt, I think is pretty silly, especially if you saw the terrifying rim hold last season when clearly his body could no longer play despite him wanting to. But let's move on to some better news, some happier stuff. James Harden.
I should say though,
yeah,
I worry after a game like last night because he's going to another level. That like, okay, so now how does the knee react to that, right? Because it's almost like clearing a different hurdle because you're raising your level of game. There's more explosive plays from him out there. God, his handle was so crazy last night. He was just so locked in. But yeah, he was making that fall away he had in the fourth quarter near the right elbow on the fadeaway over D Wade. Like his elevation, I'm a weirdo, so I'll go back to like 2019 and look where he was then movement wise with the Raptors and compare it to now. It's like, it looked pretty damn similar to me. So I have some.
I think you got to specify Dean Wade too.
Yeah. I'm just like, I totally understand the notion of feeling like, well, he's not going to be able to make it through an entire playoff run, or he's not going to be able to stay healthy, enjoy it while you can. But Stephen A presented in such a negative way and then seemed to, attack his competitiveness or something and act like he was faking an injury at one point. That's the part that to me is just crossing the line beyond anything.
Yeah. Oh, I agree 100%. The discount, of course, around Kawhi is one of the most toxic of any player. And it seems like the most vocal of his detractors are people that don't watch a lot of Kawhi Leonard. We certainly see him for as many games as he's available a year. So I think we have a pretty different picture. But another guy with a lot of detractors, James Harden, had, nearly a perfect game as well. 9 assists, 0 turnovers, looked to be firmly in his bag, scoring. The efficiency was not there from 3, just 18%. So not completely perfect game, but finished with 22 and 9. And like I said, 0 turnovers. What are you seeing from him? Like, I know the efficiency, I don't know how else to describe it other than ups and downs. It's kind of a roller coaster thing. In this one, it didn't end up biting the Clippers, but are you seeing anything, any spots where he could be making improvements? Was there anything that you thought was problematic with the shot selection, or was this just a case of stuff not going down? I thought he was really struggling around the rim, which are shots that I would not tell him to not take, obviously. Like that's a great shot. It's a great shot profile. They just weren't really falling down.
Yeah, maybe he was seeing ghosts a little bit just because the reputation of Mobley and Jared Allen lurking, I did feel like because this was a playoff type of atmosphere that he wasn't getting some of the calls he usually gets. And he got a little bit frustrated over that. I think there were 2 times where he felt like he was fouled on a 3-pointer and he didn't get the call. And you're less prone to get those calls in the playoffs. They're going to let more of that stuff go. And that's always been part of the problem at times with James Harden, where you're getting stuff in the regular season that doesn't translate to the playoffs with the way he's being officiated out there. So I think that got in his head a little bit. And I would say, I think this is a good example, this game, of why Kawhi has to be the number 1 option for you to be at your best. Because Kawhi's game translates so well to the playoffs because whether he's going up against Miles Bridges on Sunday as his defender or Evan Mobley on Tuesday, they both kind of look the same, I think, to Kawhi often with the type of shots that he takes. Like, he's seeing through the defense anyways. Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter. His shot is less affected by more physical play or by the reputation of the defender and how good they are because he gets to his spots, he pulls up, they're unguardable shots. Whereas James Harden, it is a little bit more dependent on who you're going against, how good the defense is. So I hope that this is a reminder that when the going gets tough, Kawhi is still going to have to be the guy because he made some comments Sunday night about basically it sounded like he was saying, I'll fit it around you guys, rather than you fitting around me.
yeah,
Well, I don't know. Did you hear any of those comments that he made? Because I found it pretty interesting.
yeah. I don't know. I guess I just kind of read it as like sort of generic team speech because I don't really think that Kawhi is the guy. He's not the guy to get on the podium and say that he's the system, even though he is the system. He's more of the OS, I guess. It doesn't really need to announce its presence. It's there. It's running the whole thing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
but yeah, I agree. I do think that he can be a little bit more aggressive, and hopefully this one was a step in the right direction. Before we move on, anything troubling catch your eye from this game? Anything you didn't like? Any player or performance you thought was a little lacking?
The way they hunted James Harden made me go, yeah, everybody's going to do that in the playoffs. Like, not to that degree, maybe.
Was that a surprise?
Was that?
Was that a surprise?
No, they were so relentless for a regular season game. And it was just kind of a reminder like, yeah, this is a real flaw because the defense kept breaking down because he kept getting beat off the dribble. They did it to Bogey a little bit too. I think he was better in the second half. He just has to be a little bit better than he was.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be great. And the Clippers, maybe the soft switching, they can do away with some of that at times because they make it too easy. That was the one thing that just was like, yeah, that's not great. That doesn't bode well later on.
Yeah, especially I don't know. Especially with like the Chris Dunn of it all. Like if he's out there to like help James Harden on the defensive end and sort of like the void that he can present on the offensive end, it just kind of goes back to like I don't know why. I'm still thinking about what we're gonna do with this starting lineup and why we don't have a solidified five yet.
Chris Dunn got the start. They were okay with the 3 guards.
You called it. They did end up going the 3 guard route, which I did like your reasoning coming into this one too, is that it makes the most sense to slow down Garland and Mitchell, give them a rough night early, and some of the size mismatches kind of fall where they may.
Where are you at though overall with so we're just going to keep going matchup to matchup and have a revolving door for that 5th guy in the starting lineup all the time? Do you think that's sustainable or the right move?
No, but I also don't like I think if they were to say this is officially the starting lineup, what the move would be is not the one that I would want. As much as great as Chris Dunn has been, I do believe that is the direction they would probably shine the light in that. And he has been great. No knock against his game at all. And DJJ has been, he's proven that he has the mentality to come off the bench. He's looked really great doing it. I'm not sure his 3-point shooting looks better. I mean, obviously he's been recovering and he's been coming back from an injury, but it's looked better since he's been on the bench. So yeah, I don't know. Again, the Chris Dunn of it all, the thing that just concerns me is, you're in a playoff game and you get down 10-15 early. It's just a lot more difficult to make up that ground, I feel like, in that type of a slow grinding scenario than it is in a regular season game.
Yeah. Sometimes I think, and you brought this up recently, it's more important about who you close with. And maybe we're doing some over-analysis, always talk about starting lineups,
Of course.
And you could start somebody, you could have a starting lineup and then adjust from there.
Yeah.
So
Well, I guess that's more of what I mean is like the actual starting five is maybe like a little bit irrelevant. It just seems like I guess there could just be maybe some more clarity around the rotations, but at the same time, it does help you maintain a little bit of malleability or flexibility to change stuff up within matchups.
yeah, I don't know. Well, I feel like with Kawhi saying the playoffs have already started last night, and I know Coach Lou wasn't sitting there on the bench, but I wonder if his mindset is it's just night to night basis. It's just game by game. Figure out a way to win that one game. And that means nobody should be comfortable in their spot too much because I'm going to play the matchups. And I guess I'm okay with that to a degree. Like, I don't think it's the end of the world because these guys like each other. I don't think anybody's going to be disgruntled. Now, if all of a sudden Norman Powell was out of the starting lineup, then I'd be like, uh-oh, we're taking this a little bit too far. But if it's one position that keeps changing
Yeah.
between DJ, Dunn, or Nico, I don't think it's the end of the world.
Yeah, you're still limiting your variables enough there. And I do think like the mentality of everyone on the roster is certainly robust enough to sort of deal with whatever that is, whether it does get solidified as something or whether it continues to change. But that's going to do it for this great win over the Cavs. We'll be back at you here in just a couple seconds. We got to take a break for some ads, but we're going to look ahead to the Clippers taking on the Grizzlies. So ads coming up on if you're listening on audio in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back in Clips and Dip, Season 3, Episode 55. I'm Adam Moslem. We got Will Updike. No,
thank you for doing the episode number. I forgot to do it at the top. Chuck's gonna be pissed.
Oh, well, I just pulled up like the rundown a second ago. You didn't hear that, Chuck. No, I knew where we were going next. The Clippers have another big ball game on Friday at Intuit Dome against the Memphis Grizzlies. Their final game against them, they're actually 2-0 against them so far this season, which kind of bucks a trend of past years where it felt like they were typically on the wrong end in that matchup. But in comes Chris Dunn, DJ, a couple more guys on the perimeter to help out with Ja Morant, who they definitely saw in the first matchup, but not the second, and they're 2-0 against him. Grizzlies, since the All-Star break, just 7-8, 15th in net rating, 13th in offensive rating, 14th in defensive rating. So they've kind of been slow out of the gates post All-Star break, but they have won 5 of their last 7. But they did lose to the Cleveland Cavaliers at home. Wouldn't happen to the Clippers. Would never happen to the Clippers.
Could not be us.
How are you feeling about Friday's matchup? Is this going to confirm what we saw on Tuesday, or could this turn into, oh, the Clippers are still inconsistent, and I don't know what to expect from this team game to game, even though they just got their best victory?
Yeah, I don't know that this one would be enough to do a complete 180 for me on where this team is at. That being said, though, I mean, this to me would be a very significant win. Certainly rattling off 5 straight. I mean, I don't think we've done that since November, maybe 5. Because 5 is the longest. I was looking this up a couple weeks ago. 5 straight is the longest streak, I believe, of the season, and that would have been pretty early on there. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, yeah, it would be more. I guess it would be more evidence to the idea that the team is super inconsistent, but it doesn't undo what they've done so far. But a win would swing me, like even further sort of in this positive direction. So I guess what I'm saying is there's less to lose than there is to gain, is how I'm viewing this one.
Yeah, and look, the Grizzlies aren't playing well, but they are one of those teams in the Western Conference still in front of the Clippers. And I know they lost last night to the Sacramento Kings, who had been in a tailspin after the Kawhi shot. He basically broke the Kings, and they lost, I think, 4 or 5 in a row after that. But they will be what? Are they on a back-to-back heading into that game also? They have the Blazers tonight, Memphis. And we don't know the status of Ja Morant, who was out for the last game with a hamstring injury. What do we want to see from this Clippers team specifically to build off of what we saw, I guess, against Cleveland, against a Memphis team now that's pretty good?
I'd like to see them again on the offensive end, just with the same sort of like precision to pick apart some of those lineups. Whether that goes back to having Bogey handle the ball more at times and maybe feature Harden and Kawhi in a little bit more off ball of a role to give them a little bit of break from the ball handling duties and sort of enable them to sort of zero in on whatever matchup it is they want and really go at it. Because we need to get some sort of offensive swing, some sort of offensive juice figured out. And I think that was like one of the brighter takeaways from the last game, because like all season long it's been, what are we going to do with this? And I think what I liked the most was that it was a glimpse back to that 2021 team where in the half court they were the best team in the NBA. And it wasn't always even like the insane ball movement or anything. A lot of times it was just really meticulous, plodding, efficient offense. So to see that again, to see them be able to put up a $115, $120 on this Grizzlies team and pull out a win, to me would be very, very impressive. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but that would be very impressive for me. Obviously, Harden to have a little bit more efficient of a night, Norm to get his legs back under him, but more so than anything, just a sort of, I just want to see a step in the right direction, that they at least know where they're heading offensively, that we're not just relying on past efficiency and hopeful numbers from individual players, but we have sort of a cohesive idea, even if maybe it isn't exactly what you want the offense to be, but they know who they're hunting, and they're making it a point to get certain players involved in the action and having to defend them on a possession-to-possession basis.
Yeah, as much as it feels like they have a pretty defined aggressive defensive mentality and identity there, the offensive side, high pick and roll, big Zoo, James Harden, but now Kawhi's back. So how does he fit in, and how's the shot distribution going game to game? I will say this, though. I was kind of shocked by this earlier. The last 10 games, they're third in offensive rating. Now, they have played some bad teams over that stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple of pretty nice scores buoying that, but sure.
Yeah. Cleveland's game last night, obviously their best wins of the season is included, but I still don't know exactly how they're going to show up on that end each and every night. And some of it can just be masked from hot shooting. It's like, well, This is what we do. We make shots. That's our identity. When we're good, we make more shots. And now Bogey is shooting like 48% from three the last 10 games too. So that kind of goes into it. The three-point shooting has been a little bit better. Kawhi is back, and I think the last 4 games he's at like 28 points per game, not just last night on high efficiency. He's turned his three-point shooting around in a big way. So, there is such great individual talent there that obviously you can get by.
And it's a below average defense. Like it's a just outside of bottom 10 sort of defense.
Oh, the Clippers or Memphis?
Memphis.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like, yeah, they're not as good as the Cleveland Cavaliers. So depending on if Ja Morant's there, either way, I just want to see like a real plan of attack out there. And Kawhi had been talking about better ball movement, and that has been happening, I think, overall.
It has, yes.
I'll say this. Here's something that's distinct that has stood out to me. So they have been turning over the ball way less, like the last 15 games. But the last 10 specifically, it's 11.6 times per game. It's like top 5 in the league. So
and the lowest by 30% almost of like since the 2-1-3 era. Like normally they're around, I'd say like 14.
Yeah. And even though James had the low efficiency game last night, he took care of the basketball. I think he had 9 assists and 0 turnovers.
Exactly. That's why I said he had a perfect game in some regards.
So they are doing some things right. Like if you want to talk about being on the same page and having a plan, it's hard to have low turnovers if you aren't connected offensively. So they are doing some things. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's a good thing. And we're overthinking a little bit because they do have a more diverse attack right now. And we're trying to see where it's coming from all the time. But it's like, no, that's the point, dummies.
That's true.
The defense doesn't know who's going to be attacking them every time down the floor. And that's why they've been better on that end. Maybe we're asking too much. I don't know.
But don't you feel? I just feel like they haven't always like used some of the mismatches to their advantage, and that even goes to like getting Big Zoo touches. I feel like sometimes he has a mismatch down low, and it's like why is he not immediately fed the ball? He's shown time in and time out that he can obviously score on the other player or make something else happen. But what about you? What's one thing you're looking at? What are you looking for to get this win over the Grizzlies?
Well, Big Zoo body Triple J earlier this season, and I wonder if he remembers how badly he had to wear it in that game. And I want to see Ivica Zubats like strike fear into opponents. I know he's not Shaq. He'll never be Shaq. No one moving forward will probably be Shaq. But can there be a level of fear factor when you're going up against the Clippers with Ivica Zubats? Because you know that night, if you have to guard this guy, you're probably going to get embarrassed a couple of times.
Yes.
I would love to see that, like a reputation from Ivica Zubats from being nastier. He has been. I don't think he's ever been soft, but that title has been given to him from the people who weren't the Zoo truthers like us, praising him for years. But now, some of the stuff he's doing out there is so dominant. I'm not calling him the MDE, the most dominant ever like Shaq, but just can he, coming into the game, have a reputation of, oh, you're facing a guy who's in the conversation for top 5 best center in the league tonight?
I mean, if that isn't already in the scouting report, then I think maybe some of these scouts need to know more ball.
This is true. You would assume some of the players have known how good he is, but there's good, and then there's I may get dunked on, or I may have him do a spinning reverse layup, or use the left hand on me, fake me out of my shoes, like that stuff. I think that can have players a little bit more skittish going into a ball game against the Clippers. And I would love it if Jaren Jackson Jr. was feeling a little bit of that because Zoo has dominated him.
All right. So what do you? It's kind of questionable. Like this team, the Grizzlies, they are fourth in overall plus minus, despite being, like I said, below average defense, above average offense. Maybe not exceptional, but they're about 13th in offensive rating since the All-Star break. They're one game below 500. What worries you about this one?
The Clippers, aside from the first half against the Cleveland Cavaliers, have had the shooting actually going their way recently from opponents. After for like a month and a half, it felt like everybody was lighting them up from three. Law of averages, it always seems to work that way, where I think teams are shooting like 32% from three against the Clippers their last 10 games, which is one of the best or lowest percentages in the league against anybody. I'm just worried that that's not going to be able to hold, but I'm also encouraged because the first half last game, it looked like the Cavs were on one of those heaters and the Clippers stepped up. But yeah, I could see the Memphis Grizzlies, with Desmond Bane. I don't know what Jalen Wells is shooting on the season. Who am I thinking of? Well, obviously, Zach Edey's not shooting any. But Jaren Jackson Jr. is known for being a stretch big. Like, is this going to be the game where a team?
The name you're forgetting is Luke Kennard, I think, sir.
Luke Kennard is definitely. I think he started the last time out against the Clippers when they didn't have Ja Morant. A Luke Kennard revenge game, yes, that should be the worry. Lukey Dookie going off from distance.
And Desmond Bane, I mean, he just put up a 40-piece. I mean, it was in a bad loss to the Kings, but he just put up 44. So I like that you bring him up. He could definitely get something done against the Clippers.
Adem Bona was the guy I was thinking of. Another stretch big.
There you go.
Wait, that's not who I'm thinking of. God damn it. Who am I thinking of from the Grizzlies?
Are you Googling who am I thinking of from the Grizzlies? I hear the keyboard.
Adem Bona, Aldama, Santi Aldama. Yes, he's their stretch big. Okay, I'm sorry. I got us sidetracked here.
Man.
Wild goose chase.
Yeah, I guess I'm worried. I'm worried if the shooting doesn't go the Clippers' way early that we see a fall off defensively. I liked last game. You sort of like you mentioned the pivot that they were able to take when they weren't getting stops, which was aided by them actually being able to to knock shots down. But I think sometimes when we've seen them come out to a slow start offensively, they can kind of fall behind on the other end of the floor. And that's still, as much as I've brought up, wanting to see more of an offensive identity, more of wanting to see a step forward in that direction, it can't come at a step backwards to where they've been defensively really all season. So I don't anticipate that happening. But you brought up Harden and some of the call things. I think that some of the times that his low light reel has definitely been times after arguing with a call that he didn't get, which is common for a lot of foul prone guards to not really get back. But yeah, I just want to see the same sort of defensive intensity if the shooting efficiency isn't going their way the way that it did against the Cavaliers, because I don't think that in general they're going to be able to say, okay, well, like defensively it's just not really working, so let's try to shoot our way out of this one, which is what I was really worried about in that Cavs game. But they were able to shoot themselves out of it.
There was a great quote post game from B. Shaw saying, nobody tried to hijack the offense. When somebody had it rolling, they kept feeding that guy. They kept going to him when they had the mismatch. So that was encouraging to hear. He uses some strong language sometimes. He's very blunt and frank. But yeah, I'm with you. I think this is a team that at some point they have to get out of that transitional phase of we have everybody back or the majority of our team back, or we're still figuring it out, because there's 13 games left. It's like you can't still be in that, figuring out how to play next to one another stage. You got to make it happen right now. And hopefully what we saw last night was the step in that right direction, where this Clippers team is kind of crystallizing how they want to play every possession.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Not a whole lot of, we always talk about on this show how little runway is left. And yeah, it's creeping right up on them. It's like in that movie. What's the Ben Affleck World War II movie? Pearl Harbor. They're practicing because they have to conserve fuel, so they're practicing taking the jet fighters off with a shorter and shorter distance. So they're like marking it with the chalk. Anyways, that's where the Clippers are at right now. Sorry to get onto a nowhere analogy, but yeah, the Clippers are going to come back from war. Someone else has been with their old lady, and now they got to figure the whole thing out.
I was thinking you were going Dumb and Dumber, where Jim Carrey runs out of the chute and like falls onto the tarmac or whatever. Like they're running out of runway.
It's looked like that sometimes too. It has looked like that sometimes too. Let's get into our. Do you have any other thoughts on this one before we get into our players of the game?
No, let's do it. Let's get to it.
All right. So this is the, of course, highly coveted Ivica Zubac, Kawhi Leonard, Norm Powell, James Harden player of the game. If the name of a player was mentioned in the award, it means that you cannot pick them for the award. Always presents an interesting curveball for these discussions. Adam, I'll kick it over to you. Who is your player of the game per the rules of this segment?
I'm going to go with Amir Coffey.
Ooh, okay. I like that you brought him up because I thought he kind of stunk last game.
Well, that's what this is about. Finding a guy who's due to bounce back. Okay, he did have, 1 of 4 from the field and just 3 points in 17 minutes. They only credited him with 1 because I think Ivica Zubac got credit for tipping it out. But he had a key offensive rebound to get them an extra possession.
Correct.
In the fourth quarter.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
We're building off of this, baby. Amir Coffey's going to turn that into a 15-point game on Friday night.
He also had a terrible turnover, right?
I'm not here to talk about that.
Okay.
Who do you got?
I'm gonna. Oh man, this one feels like cheating, and I'm gonna say it because it might be one of the last few times that we get to say him before his name gets added to the list of folks.
Bogey?
Going Bogdan Bogdanović, baby. I think that he's just continuing to build on this. And like I said, I really do like when they are. I do think that he is one of those pieces to getting this team rolling offensively. Him paired with Harden does present its own sort of issues on the defensive end, and we have seen Bogey picked on very heavily at times, especially in that Lakers game. But either way, he's on the up and up. I really like what he brings. I love his shooting. Like I said earlier, his ball handling is even better, I feel like, than advertised. So I'm looking for a strong performance from him, and him to help sort of raise to be the water that raises the tide if there's any sort of slow offensive points in this game, because we've all gotten too used to watching 3-minute long stretches of NBA basketball without a made field goal.
I don't know if he's going 100%.
Which takes years off your life, dude. That takes years off my life. I'm 17 years old. I look like this because I watch Clippers basketball.
All right. You got the ringer and Bogey. I got a mere coffee. Fair enough. Where can everybody find this wonderful podcast here, Will, they've been listening to?
You can find this podcast, which if you thought it was good today, normally there's 3 of us. That's at least 50% better. But you can check that out wherever you get your podcasts. If you happen to listen over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go ahead and leave a little rating or review. It helps us out. But the best way to check out this podcast is over on YouTube. That's youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. But hey, however you tune in, we appreciate you.
Before we get out of here, I think I have to do something.
You have an obligation. You have a legal obligation.
I've said so many positive things already. What have I missed at this point?
Dig deep, man.
Okay. The Clippers have a real shot. I thought they were stuck in the 7-8 plan. They do have a real shot still to get into the 6th spot. They do. It's there. It's possible. It can happen. I was looking at all the upcoming schedules for the Golden State Warriors, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, for the Memphis Grizzlies. This is all still in front of them with 13 games left. And maybe, I don't know, they're peaking at the right time for once. How many times have they gone into the playoffs where you felt like, yeah, they got the right type of momentum going on? Kawhi looks perfectly poised for a long playoff run. This might actually work out because they went through a little bit of a downspin or downturn after the All-Star break, and they have pulled out of that tailspin beautifully here. So now this Clippers team, they got a chance to really build a little bit of momentum, because also the level of competition, if you're looking for positives by playing really good teams, when you beat them, you feel really good about yourself.
Very
so
true.
We'll see. If they get another victory over the Memphis Grizzlies, they'll be flying high.
All right, flying high. Let's hope that's where we're at. That's going to do it for today's episode of Clips and Dip. Thank you so much. And as our co-host Charles Mockler always says, let's go Clips.